she saw the gaps here and there like pulled teeth. Perhaps it was because Nanami was so familiar with the library that she noticed this phenomenon. To her, the changes were undeniable. The books were definitely gone.
"You're saying I need to check on the books?"
The voice of elderly Mr. Hamura, the librarian at the main reception desk, wasn't all that loud, but as the ground floor had a high vaulted ceiling, his words reverberated through the whole library. Still, with so few patrons, it wasn't as if anyone was there to hear it. Just one older woman who happened to be passing threw Nanami and Mr. Hamura a quick glance. Nanami tried to keep her tone as casual as possible.
"Yeah, some books are missing that should be there. More than just one or two."
Mr. Hamura peered over his reading glasses at the young girl in the school uniform.
"I see. Well, that is a serious problem,"
he pronounced, before turning his attention back to the file on the desk in front of him. He hastily scribbled something down before continuing.
"If you're going to make a fuss every time you can't find the books you want on the shelves, then how are you going to be able to use a library?"
For a moment, Nanami looked confused at the librarian's logic, but she soon realized that it was the old man's eccentric sense of humor. He snapped the plastic file shut and looked up at the junior high schooler.
"Look, Nanami-chan,"
he said, stroking his spindly white beard.
"This is a library. If anyone coming here wants to borrow a book, it's a very simple procedure. And that's why sometimes books are there and sometimes they're not. That procedure hasn't changed since the time you were in preschool and came here with your father to borrow a copy of The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And if you've forgotten, you're very welcome to check the terms of use up there on the wall."
"It's just not my day," thought Nanami, sighing inwardly. Old Mr. Hamura was more than just a librarian. He'd worked for decades in this library and had chosen to stay on at the reception desk even after retirement. You could call him a living encyclopedia of this ancient library. Although he was cynical, moody, and rather difficult, he wasn't a bad person. He had introduced Nanami to all kinds of wonderful books. However, when he was in one of his moods, you risked getting on the wrong end of his caustic tongue. Today was clearly one of those days.
"This library,"
the old man went on, emphasizing his words by tapping the cover of his file with a bony finger,
"is as old as I am. And old people get worn out and forget things. Young people's job is to take care of the elderly and not to get caught up worrying about a few missing books."
How long is this going to drag on? Nanami's mind had already wandered from this fruitless conversation at the ground floor reception desk up to the British literature section on the first floor. She was probably going to finish her current read, Wuthering Heights, today or the following day, and she needed to choose her next book. Now was clearly not the best time to ask Mr. Hamura for a recommendation.
"Although I do appreciate your concern, I've got a lot of work to do."
The librarian was interrupted by the sound of Nanami's cell phone chiming softly in her pocket. It wasn't a text message. It was her evening reminder alarm. She promptly pulled an inhaler from her bag, put it to her mouth, and took a deep breath. Nanami needed this treatment for her asthma several times a day, but tended to forget her evening dose. It was her father who had suggested she set this alarm. Mr. Hamura waited for her to finish.
"I'll take a look at the shelves later,"
he said, in a somewhat gentler tone than before.
"I'd rather you spent time taking care of yourself instead of worrying about books."
Naturally, Nanami didn't tell the old man to mind his own business. She simply nodded her thanks and turned to leave. As she walked away, she let rip her parting shot, albeit inside her head. Useless. She was well aware that she had just insulted the living.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.